Raila Amolo Odinga did not become the AUC chair. They had hopes and dreams that Raila Odinga would become the AUC chair so that he could be able to be a bridge between excellence in the continent and our people in Kenya, and indeed the people of Migori County were championing and rooting for Raila Amolo Odinga. So it is no question that they are sad. And Mr. Speaker, in any sad situation, whether it's death or losing an election like what happened, Mr. Speaker, if you are sad and somebody else is laughing, that person does not want the best for you. It doesn't matter whether whatever brings you sadness is something that brings them happiness. It just means that they don't want something good for you. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I want to say that anybody who has laughed, celebrated the loss that we had in Addis has got no best interest of our people at heart, especially the delegation that I'm presenting and representing from Migori County. I remember, Mr. Speaker, Nelson Mandela, when one day he was asked by a journalist on his take on the Cuban positioning in terms of the Cuban War with regards to other people as well as Muammar Gaddafi. And Mandela told the journalist that many people think that their enemies are supposed to be South African enemies. Just because you have got some enemies somewhere, they are not going to be ODM's enemies. We as ODM, and we as a people from Migori, and we as a people from Nyanza, and I believe this is the spirit that every other nation that finds himself or themselves in the corridors of the country called Kenya, we don't make enemies because other people have enemies. We treat people with the same attitude that they treat us with. That is the area with which we differ with many people who celebrated this. But that said, Mr. Speaker,
Senator Cherargei, would you like to be informed by Senator Cherargei?
Senator Cherargei is a very serious ranking member. Let him inform me, but within a short time.
Mr. Speaker, I'd just like to, with a lot of indulgence, to inform on the issue of Mandela, it was not Cuban war. It was the Palestinian war on the issue of PLO. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, you know, Cherargei. Anyway, thank you. But Mr. Mandela was asked the question on the issue of his relationship with the Cuban fighter, we call him Fidel Castro, and also on the issue of him with Muammar Gaddafi, who tend to have been very polarizing figure in a number of, it was not just one war, but a number of issues that affect the entire continent at that time when South Africa was being seen as a terrorist nation just because they were fighting apartheid in South Africa. And his thinking was that any relationship that they're making with people or any friendship that they're making with different people is based on how those people treat South Africa, not based on the enemies that those people have. And that's what I'm trying to say also, that our politics as ODM going forward will be based on how people treat us and how people respect us and the contribution that we make to the country. But that said, Mr. Speaker, I want to say that there is a Swahili word that says Mugala muue aki mpe. Despite the differences that different people have with President Ruto in the borders of our country, Mr. Speaker, I want to say that we are very grateful for the kind of support, for the kind of commitment, for the kind of dedication that President Ruto gave to Raila Amolo Odinga in the process of running for AU. And I want to tell the President, Mr. Speaker, that there's a book that Chinua Achebe expresses about a lizard that fell out of an iroko tree. You know, this lizard fell out of an iroko tree onto a rock, but the lizard did not break its back. And around it, because it's just a lizard, other animals were there, but they were not able to celebrate the lizard. So the lizard looked around, and because nobody saw the lizard dropping down as something big and not breaking its back, the lizard said to itself, I am so strong that I fell out of that iroko tree, but I didn't break my back. I'm telling the president that even if some people want to close their eyes on the kind of support that you gave Raila Amolo Odinga, even if somebody will not say thank you to you, even if some people will talk negatively about it and try to put you down, be the lizard that fell off the iroko tree and thank yourself because you know how much effort you put on this campaign. That's a very sincere thank you from me. But then I must also thank Raila Amolo Odinga, because taking a continental stage in a place that you don't have control, His Excellency the PM Raila Amolo Odinga, taking a serious continental stage in a place that don't have control of presidents, when people are not bold enough to take that step, that is valor, that's a towering spirit that we want to see of many Kenyans. And I hope that many young people can glean morals from the courage of Raila Amolo Odinga to be able to take some risks. That even you as a young person today, whether you're Gen Z or you're a millennial, remember the times that perhaps you grew in Kawangware and you could play some games, some card games, and people could discourage you, but you never saw why you should not take the risk of being in the streets. But then, today, you are something. Raila Amolo Odinga has taught us that you can keep on fighting and taking risks for dreams that are bigger than you. And if your dreams as young people don't scare you, you're not worth living. Take big dreams. Take big steps. Learn from Raila Amolo Odinga. He has fought big dreams that some of them today we are benefiting from. There are countries that have got internet today, but you cannot post things and talk about anybody on the internet because you fear that you'll go to jail, because you fear that you'll die, because you fear that you'll have serious consequences. But in our nation today, many young people enjoy not just the social media platform, but they enjoy any kind of expression that they want to have on those platforms. It is not to be taken for granted that those rights that you are enjoying to be able to express yourself online are not just rights. They are rights that saw people like Raila Amolo Odinga battered, beaten, and taken to detention for you to have those rights. So even as some people try to put him down, that valor, that courage, and that towering spirit must live among young people in the country called Kenya and in the African continent. But that said also, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Odinga did not just show up on this race as just a candidate who had no contribution to make to our country and who just wanted a job. On February 27th last year, Mr. Speaker, Raila Amolo Odinga did express himself to the agenda and the vision that he was bringing to this position. And I want to agree with what my brother Senator Kajwang said, that this vision that Raila had is not just vision for the sake of getting an AU position. It's a vision that we as leaders in this country, extended to leaders in other countries that believe in the African dream, and more so, extended to the leader from Djibouti, my brother Ali Yusuf, who has taken this position, must cast their eye upon. Because African continent is constantly under threat, Mr. Speaker. The movement of goods, the movement of capital, the movement of labor in the continent to make a working economy is still a daydream that we have never achieved. And let me tell you, Mr. Speaker, that the issue of AU is not just about regional politics in the African continent. It is also about global politics, because we are competing with other continents as well. We have got China, which is a nation and also as big as a continent with populations of over 1 billion. We are competing with them. We have got America that we are competing with. And don't think that the advancement of a common market in the African continent is something pleasing to other people. And therefore, it's a commitment that cannot be just be an issue of politics in the continent. It's an issue that the continent must commit to, the dream that Raila had, from making sure that goods and services can move with this robust infrastructure. Raila Odinga held a very strong view on why we must make sure that we silence the guns in the continent and ensure that the security so that capital, goods, and people can be able to move in the continent and work and build a continent. Raila Odinga held the strong view that we need serious connectivity between Djibouti and Senegal, between Cape Town and Cairo, so that movement of people, goods, and services can be easy. Raila Odinga held the very strong view that the continent must have a single visa so that moving around the continent can be easy, so that a Kenyan who is born today without opportunities in the country called Kenya can as well move to Nigeria easily or move to Egypt easily and be able to find opportunity for themselves. So that somebody who is in Egypt, who cannot find their talent meeting the opportunities in Egypt, can move to Kenya and find opportunity that works for them. The dream of Raila Amolo Odinga was a continent where you are born does not define whether you die or you live. That dream must live with the people of Africa. That dream must live with the President of Africa. And Mr. Speaker, it is not a small dream. It is a dream for which some of us who went to Addis Ababa and saw what happened in Addis Ababa have picked that dream, we will continue with it. That one day, if not us, our children will see a united continent on the basis of economic excellence, on the basis of social justice, on the basis of politics that is good, that can advance the quality of life for the African people. And those dreams will not die because Raila Amolo Odinga cast them on that stage called the continental stage. So it's not a matter of light politics of just being in Kenya. Mr. Speaker, we have seen in this continent young people being radicalized because of lack of economic opportunities, economic emptiness, turning young people to be Al-Shabaab militia, economic emptiness, turning young people to be Boko Haram militia. And we see that same kind of trend even in the continent today, that people who the country had no confidence in, when they were serving at highest level and they were impeached in these houses, Mr. Speaker, radicalizing even young people who are in this house. You find young people being made to sing Mau Mau wars, to dress like Mau Mau, to live themselves unkempt like Mau Mau, to start behaving like Mau Mau in a way that is radicalizing people who are elected to come to this house to be able to promote a concept of national unity, promote a dream for young people in this country, and they're being radicalized. Therefore, we must start thinking, Mr. Speaker, we must start thinking of how we can be able to make sure that economic opportunity and good policies for young people are made possible so that radicalization of young people can stop, not only in Kenya but in the continent.
Eddie, Senator Wakoli, what's your point of order?
This is an honorable house of distinguished, high-profile leaders. My good brother, Honorable Eddie, has alluded that honorable members are dressed like, look like, hair like Mau Mau. Honorable Chair, it's important for my good friend to have responsibility of statement of facts, but coming out clearly and showing to us among members here or those without this place. Who is it that looks like Mau Mau? Hair like Mau Mau. So that the Honorable House is cleared of any misconduct. Thank you, Honorable Chair. Speaker.
Speaker, thank you. It seems like the senator, the good senator from Bungoma, is the only visitor from Jerusalem. I will send him some pictures of Mau Mau, people who fought, and then he can make his own judgment to look at people around who look like Mau Mau. But that said, Mr. Speaker, I must say also that we must also accept the negative that happened in this area called the fighting for this seat. I want to encourage the majority leader that let's not be blind to the fact that foreign policy in this country is still not sober. And there are positions that you can take as a people that must be based on our foreign policy. Today, Mr. Speaker, whether you are a Democrat or you are a Republican in the American politics, when it comes to certain issues, America has clear foreign policy about them. And I don't think that we don't have a foreign policy that works. I think that we don't have a domestic policy that works. Because if you've got a strong domestic policy, Mr. Speaker, then you extrapolate your foreign policy from your domestic policy. What is our policy about our businesses, Mr. Speaker, for instance? That our businesses that are locally grown, homegrown, must be protected, must be taken care of. If that is our domestic policy, then that becomes the interface with which we interact with the external world. If our foreign policy here around our resources is strong, then that becomes the angle with which we relate with other countries. It is no doubt, Mr. Speaker, that the first round and the second round of Mr. Odinga's votes, he had consistently been ahead of Djibouti. And even if we don't know who voted because it was secret ballot, Mr. Speaker, we can say without a doubt that the shift started happening when the candidate for Madagascar dropped. And that shift, when it happened, we saw the Djibouti candidate gaining votes. Therefore, even if we are not mathematically sound, we can argue that there is high likelihood that the people who are voting for Madagascar shifted to Djibouti. And that is an indictment to our foreign policy. Why did they shift in that direction? It means that we haven't chosen as a people that on certain issues that are cross-cutting in the continent, whether it's the DRC war, whether it is the coup in the continent, a number of coups are in the continent, whether it is the issue around Israel, whether it's the issues around Commonwealth, all these issues, Mr. Speaker, must have one inclination. They must have an inclination towards a sober domestic policy that defines how then we engage the external world. It has to be that our nation must advance our national interests first when we are approaching the world, because that is the only way we survive as a country. And there are a number of areas that I think that these particular laws gives us an opportunity as a nation, gives the president an opportunity as our leader, gives the executive an opportunity as the cabinet, and gives us as a parliament opportunity to be brave, to be courageous, to be honest to ourselves, and interrogate the strength of our policy when it comes to our domestic inclination. Because if we don't interrogate that and bury our heads in the sand, Mr. Speaker, we will not be stronger tomorrow to face such wars. And lastly, Mr. Speaker, I must say that Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, His Excellency Baba, is a person who has got zeal and zest to have a country that works. Even at instances that in the past regimes, Baba has supported some elements of people in governance. He has never taken any opportunity or discarded any opportunity to talk about the ills that are in government, to talk about the excesses that are in government, and to talk about bad things that are going on in the country. Including recently, when we were dealing with the issues of abductions, Baba Raila Amolo Odinga stood firm and fought abductions. And so are his soldiers who fought abductions. I can assure you that Raila Amolo Odinga does not need to be told where he's going to go. When he comes, after resting, he will give us direction on where he stands and where he goes, and therefore speculations must...
Thank you, Senator. Senator Wambua.